Hey there, fellow YouTubers. Frank Bush here again. So I haven't been out in the field doing very much bushcraft stuff lately. There's been a fire ban on in the region I'm in. It's been really bad. Everything's been really tinder dry. Even when I'm using the alcohol stoves, I found that just the heat that was emanating from the alcohol stove was causing the ground beneath to ember up and those types of things. So I've kind of stayed away from being in the woods too much as of late. Today, luckily enough, I don't know if it's picking up on the camera, but today is the first day we've seen any significant amount of rain in months in this region. So I'm quite glad to see that things are starting to come down. Hopefully we get a good solid rain over this weekend and I'm able to get out into the field next. But one way or the other, I just thought I'd do a little review today and go through my cook kit that you might have seen in other videos if you've watched previous episodes of mine, or if you're new to tuning in, kind of a good, compact, ultra lightweight cook kit that's very versatile for in the field. So I'll just kind of open it up and start going through things. This is toaks gear primarily. Find it to be some of the more affordable titanium pots and pans and those types of things you can buy. Quite often anything titanium can get pricey quick, especially like water bottles and those types of things. I tend to stay away from titanium of that. It's just not cost effective to do. But so I just thought I'd kind of go through the different elements within this cook kit to give you an idea of the versatility of it. First off, I've got a toaks. It's a combination of a pot and a frying pan, 1100 milliliter pot and a small frying pan, saucepan really, to kind of have a pot and pan to use out in the field. The combined weight of these two, the pot and the pan together, is 5.6 ounces or 159 grams for people that kind of want to know the numbers of things. But like I say, I use this in combination with a few other things just to have diversity within the kit. So I can nest inside that. I know this package could be, this bag could definitely use a cleaning. It's seen some good field use with dirty fuels in the past, but hopefully I'll get that in the laundry soon. But needless to say, this is a 750 milliliter toaks titanium bush pot where it comes with a bail handle attached to it. It's got handles on the side. Like I say, it nests inside this 1100, and I can nest another container inside it. The good part about this pot really is the fact that when it comes to the lid, you can just kind of lock in the handle so it stays up. It won't just lay flat when things are boiling, and you can hang it off a chain and a hook over, you know, a tripod over a fire, where you can boil water over the woods, you know, fire without any issue. But so inside of this pot, I know it's kind of like those little Russian dolls, if you will, but it's when you're wanting to pack things efficiently and save on space and weight, this is the way to go. So needless to say, I've got a toaks. Let me just pull some of the innards of the things that are in here out. But I've got a toaks 450 milliliter. I'll go through all these things. I've got a toaks 450 milliliter coffee cup with a lid that I can use to be a cooking pot within its own right, but to kind of work with my 750. Normally I would just cook off boiled water in here enough to make my coffee and use this to drink it out. I don't normally throw this one on the stove too much, but needless to say, when it comes to the combined weight of having the 1100 milliliter pot and pan, the 750 pot with the bail lid, this is with the pot and the lid, this is 3.9 ounces, 110 grams or so, so very, very light. And when it comes to this 450 titanium cup and lid set, this combination here is 3.2 ounces, it's 91 grams in weight. So with the three, you know, the combined, well, if you count the frying pan, the three pots in the frying pan, the combined weight of this is 12.7 ounces, 360 grams. So still beneath the 1 pound threshold, if you will. So normally I use a Fancy Feast cat food stove that I've been using in videos, but I recently purchased the Vargo Triad titanium stove, and I gave this kind of some tests at home to make sure that I got a good feel for how to use this and get optimal longevity out of the burn times and all that kind of thing. And what I found was this any type of alcohol stove, you definitely want to have a windscreen, which I didn't bring with me here. It's just sitting in the vehicle. I'm just at one of the local parks parked, but needless to say, the windshield or the windscreen that goes around this setup is just in the car, but it weighs probably 2 or 3 ounces for the windshield. But and like I say, this is a 1 ounce unit here. But what I found, one of the tricks I found after testing to try to get my fuel use as optimal as possible with this Triad stove, was I bought a little, I think this is a 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch, I believe it's 1/2 inch. It's just a copper pipe end, but I end up putting a couple drops of fuel into this, and I light this first, and then I tend to set my Triad stove with the fuel over top of it, and really get this to work as a primer pan. It's you light it up and it acts like a little flame that heats the fuel that then would sit in this. What I found with the titanium stoves over using steel or aluminum stoves is the titanium doesn't seem to distribute the heat as nicely. It's not as rapid as, say, steel at passing the heat, or retaining it into the fuel and that type of thing. So with stoves like this, you normally have to kind of preheat the fuel that sits in them before they vaporize, and you do a burn of what they call the bloom, the kind of blue flame that comes out. Rather than just burning the raw fuel, you're burning the fumes that are coming off the fuel, which gives you a far more efficient cook setup. But I found if I use one of these little primer pans, put a couple eye drops of fuel into it, lit it, and let it kind of pre-cook the fuel that's sitting in the stove for 30 seconds, a minute or so, the actual time that this stove takes to preheat and come up to the point of being at a bloom is far less. I found that if I just ran the stove cold with no primer plate, and sometimes it would take 2.5 minutes for this to bloom and preheat, if you will, before you'd really want to kind of start putting your stuff onto it. But by adding on this copper and just filling it up with a little fuel and kind of pre-cooking the fuel, it made it that within 30 seconds, 45 seconds, you could have this stove heated up to the point where it was ready to bloom and go. And one of the good parts that really does as an advantage for using this stove, because I believe it only holds about 1.3 ounces of liquid fuel, is you're always worried about burn time when you don't have a lot of liquid fuel that can in the capacitance. But by preheating this and allowing it to reach a bloom far quicker, it allows for longer burn time. What I found was when I put two cups of ice cold water into this vargo, or sorry, this toaks pot, and let it kind of preheat and bloom. Before I was doing any type of primer pan usage, I'd get this up to the point where it would reach a boil for maybe a minute or so, and then it would run out of fuel 45 seconds to a minute later. What I found was using the exact same amount of water, same kind of conditions, when I used the primer pan, and just literally, like I say, a couple eye droplets worth of fuel in there, just enough to kind of burn for 30 seconds to a minute or so. It allowed the efficiency of these triad, vargo triad stoves to really increase. I got it up to the point where even without using the windscreen, just by using the primer alone, I was able to get it to the point where, yeah, I'd get it up to a boil in just under 10 minutes, and I'm pretty well at sea level here. A 5-minute walk down the hill and I'm at the beach, so you're not getting any closer to sea level when it comes to the altitude and how it affects the boil times. Normally, when the higher the altitude, the faster things will boil, but it's not necessarily reaching a full 100-degree boil. When you're up in the mountains, things will boil quickly, so you have to boil them longer. But I'm lucky where I'm at. I'm close to sea level, so I get to do some good tests in that regard. But needless to say, I was reaching without like I say, without any windscreen, I was reaching 5-minute boil times where the water was at a full boil for a 5-minute period. So beyond just heating water to kind of disinfect it and that type of thing, you know, you're getting into being able to kind of do soft boiled eggs and that kind of stuff. I'm sure, I haven't tested it fully yet, but I'm sure if I use the windscreen with the primer pan that I would probably get another minute or two and be able to do some soft boiled eggs and those types of things in the mornings if I wanted. You know, just off an alcohol stove, which is normally fairly unusual for alcohol stoves unless you go with a larger one that carries a, you know, larger dole of fuel. The only other thing I really do carry in this kind of cook setup is I've got a really lightweight chain that I've just picked up at the hardware store. And I'll just kind of show you exactly what I've done here. It's quite simple, really. On you know, one end of the chain I've just hooked on a little eye hook. I've got another one hooked on a foot or so down that line, and then this length of chain is about 6 foot in length, 5 foot, 6 foot in length, and I've got just another eye hook on the other end. And this is primarily for when I've got a tripod, I can wrap this around, I can hook it to itself, and then it gives a place where, you know, I now have a chain that's hanging, if you will, where I can hook it on to my bail handle and hang it over a fire. You know, if I'm not going with the wood stove, it just gives me some versatility in how I want to use my cook kit. Normally in my bag, separate from just having a chain, I also, if you've seen some of my other videos, I've got a homemade grill that I made that I can actually hang off of this chain, and allows me to have a flat grill that's about 8 by 10 inches in size that I could put a frying pan down or cook some meat on and that type of thing. Like I say, that's just in the bag as well. But you know, it's the weight of a cookie sheet with a couple fishing leaders really to keep it together. But I think one of the best videos I have, if you wanted to see kind of a more detailed perspective on exactly how that grill is constructed, you know, the different pieces, there's a video up on my site where I use a painter's drop cloth as a white canvas and kind of origami it into a tent with doors. I believe it's, I can't remember the exact name of the video, but you'll see it if you look through my video history. You'll see me blowing a fire in a bird's nest to life with a white canvas kind of tent looking thing in the background. That video itself has a really good detailed breakdown of exactly how that grill came together. But like I say, today was more focused on this cook kit and how it comes together. You know, like I say, with the Vargo Triad stove, the primer pan, these 3 pots, you know, and the frying pan, that all comes out, the pots and pans come out to 13.7 ounces. I would say maybe 2 or 3 ounces for this lightweight chain. Like I say, it's only, I think, maybe 20-30 pound weight that this chain will hold. It's not super strong chain, doesn't need to be. It's just got to be there to hold my lunch over a fire, you know. But there's probably 2 or 3 ounces in that alone. So this whole setup comes out to less than 16 ounces. So that's really less than 1 pound in weight, and gives me the versatility of having a couple pots and pans and those types of things. You know, when you're hiking and you're out bushcrafting in the fields, you know, a lot of people when they first start off go with stainless steel on that because it's cheaper and, you know, just readily available. But when you're hiking with weight in your bag, it always becomes a factor. You know, as you go through time and you're wanting to build your kit and morph your kit and kind of develop it, you know, you want to cut your weight as much as possible. So I found that this combination at, like I say, a 1 pound weight gives me the better part of my cook kit needs. The only thing I'm really going to add to this entire kit is the fuel that I'm going to be burning in the stove, and that can change through time. But and plus I could flip it over and use fuel tabs if I wanted to move away from the liquid fuel altogether. Normally the only other piece that I would have that's in combination with this is people have seen it in previous videos. I use a little Vargo hexagonal wood stove. Quite often I use that as a windscreen, but I've been kind of moving away from that as I've been wanting to kind of optimize this kit with the new stove as much as possible. So, but I think the Vargo hexagonal wood stove And I think that only added another, not even 4 ounces, I think it was, to this kit. So we're still, even with that, we're still close to the 1 pound mark. But you know, when it comes to adding in cordage and you're carrying knives and you're carrying cook kits and sleeping bags and everything else, you know, like I say, anytime it gets, to my perspective, it gets above about 40 pounds in weight, it starts to get harder and harder to carry that weight any distance. So, you know, it's good to be mindful of trying to keep your kit as optimized as possible. You know, when I go out with a family, yeah, I'll have a frying pan. I've got a second, you know, my old cook kit that was all stainless steel, if you will. I'll bring that with me to have the additional cups and pots and pans and stuff, because you get volume when you're dealing with people, you know, and you're dealing with the family. You get more volume of stuff you just need. But as it goes for 1 or 2 people going out into the field, this is amply good enough to supply those needs, you know. So I'll leave it here at this point in time and kind of pack everything back up and head back off. The rain's starting to come down a bit more, which, like I say, I'm grateful for. Hopefully it'll lift fire bands for me and get me out into the field next week. But either way, if you made it this far in the video, I hope you enjoy this type of content. You know, like, share, subscribe, that type of thing. Hopefully I'll be putting out more videos, like I say, next week, if it's all possible, where I can get back out into the fields. I'd like to start doing more wood processing and that. I find that generally in the peak summer months, I tend to not do quite as many, you know, going out into the field and stuff. Not only is there a lot more people that just want to go explore the outdoor world, but all the fire bans and everything else really kind of deter me from going into the field quite as much. But hopefully, as the fire bans lift and we move more into the fall and the winter months, which is when I really prefer, you know, to be out into the field, less bugs, less people, just better conditions all around in my perspective. But hopefully I'll have a video put out soon. And like I say, thanks for watching. Cheers.